Good evening, good day, everybody. Welcome to the thank you, Robert. Welcome everybody to the Big Blue Bent podcast on the Triple B Network. I'm Jeff Joseph, your host. I've settled into this job now. We're like almost the end of the second season, so it's my gig. With me, a couple of regulars here. We got Dr. Roy Eappen on the bottom here. He's a endocrinologist and internal medicine specialist. He was just recently a provincial election candidate for the the Conservative Party of Quebec. Recently here, ditto. Live to tell about it. We'll leave it at that. But he's back with us. We're loved having him, and of course Robert Presser, former Progressive Conservative Party of Canada. I was thinking about with Roy. That was a funny thing. Former Progressive Conservative candidate back in the good old Mulroney days over here in Mount Royal. And he's an op-ed writer. He's an entrepreneur. He's a speech writer consultant. He's kind of a do-it-all, and we love reading.
Flattery.
He writes some beautiful stuff on economics and geopolitics and stuff like that. And nice to have you here again, Robert. Okay, so let's roll. We're getting close to the year end, and it was funny because we were talking about this just before the show, going, it just seems like every few days something crazy comes up out of Ottawa, and boy, it was coming in droves because I think while we're taping this, I believe the parliamentary session is going to wrap up at the latest. It's supposed to go tomorrow, but usually they go the Thursday night, and everybody agrees to call it a day. And I think except for the Senate, which goes maybe a couple more days. And then they're actually taking a long break till January 30th. I just heard extended break. Anyways, but it didn't end. It ended. The session's been ending with quite a bit of fanfare on a number of fronts. We're not going to get to all of them, but I'm going to highlight probably the largest national stories. I have to start with number one. And the funniest thing is because we're all like Montreal-based conservatives, and probably the three of us are not resident experts about guns and shooting and stuff like that. But we did, one of the many bills that the Liberals are trying to jam through in their own way in the big sprint to the finish here. There has been yet another piece of legislation involving extended gun bans, and this one in particularly C-21 is also involving banning importation and sale and what have you. I'm going to tee this up. It's C-21. It's a bill that passed through first reading in October, passed through second reading in early November. It was at the committee stage up until about it was in the committee stage after the second reading passage in November. And all of a sudden, just around the very, very start of December, I'd say right around December the 1st, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was right around then, we got word that the Liberals attempted to amend the legislation a little bit. They threw in a couple more clauses as to what kind of rifles they wanted to restrict, and suddenly added a whole bunch of additional rifles. That seemed to set off, in particular, hunters, because we were hearing about hunting rifles being banned, and there was a lot of argument about that. And we thought, it's going to be one of these normal back and forths, and the government's going to win. The government's going to win. And then all of a sudden, we have one Carey Price, our longtime goaltender here with the Montreal Canadiens, who's serving time on injured reserve, a long-time injured reserve. Lot of thinking is he'll never be playing again. But anyway, that's another story. Lo and behold, on Saturday, December the 4th, he puts an Instagram post with an undated photo with him in a hunting uniform. And I always say undated because he's got a mustache, he's got facial hair all over the place. I mean, the last time I personally saw him is at the Montreal Canadiens home opener when he was introduced as part of the roster, and he actually came out in the stands with he was clean shaven with his black cowboy hat and what have you, and he had a big rousing ovation. Anyways, Carey Price all of a sudden waded into the debate with this Facebook post, Instagram post, basically declaring himself, he's a peaceful man, he is a hunter, he respects his neighbors in that. He's very opposed to Justin Trudeau's C-21, and he supports the Canadian, the CCRF, the rifle hunters, basically lobby group and whatever. And so he came out swinging against it, and then the fur flew. So best to describe it. It became, oh, what did Carey get? The biggest thing though was the attack angle on Carey Price is that he put the statement out 3 days before the anniversary, and this is a big thing, especially in Montreal. He put it out 3 days before the anniversary of the École Polytechnique massacre, a horrible incident. We can all agree where 13 women were killed.
Wait a minute here.
Let's go to Dr. Roy. I'll cut off. Dr. Roy, jump in there.
So the government actually introduced the legislation and the 2 days before the École Polytechnique, trying to use that for so who is responsible for using the massacre of those poor young women?
Well, I mean, look, we had government people, and you could tell the PMO was doing their stuff with their social media contacts and influencers, and the media, of course, was all buying in, and it became, what is Carey Price? Why is Carey Price sticking in his nose into this business? And he's all wrong, and it was disrespectful to the memories of the victims.
Maybe we should worry about reconciliation again. Most of the Native people in this country oppose this law, this part of the law. And apparently the Liberals don't care. I'm not a gun. I've shot a couple of guns in my life at ranges in Vegas, but I'm not a big gun person. But you know what? I think hunting is perfectly reasonable. I'm not opposed to people having guns in their houses if they're trained and licensed. But the government has reduced the penalties for gun crimes in this country. A lot of people have reduced the bail conditions, so people are getting out who are violent, and gun crime has gone a lot higher under the Liberal government, and nothing that they're doing is going to reverse that. So this is all for show, as most of what they do is, and I think that Carey Price is a Native person. He comes from a band in British Columbia. And it's hilarious when I hear Trudeau, kneeling in front of non-existent graves at Native reserves. But when there's an actual Native issue, that Indigenous people actually care about, he doesn't really care.
Robert, you've been quiet, so I'll give you.
Yes, I was just taking it all in. I know you look at it on two levels. First, I want to look at the equipment itself. When we commit crime, not we, but in a broader sense, we have crimes are committed in this country. What type of weaponry is used? Typically, it's a handgun because it's easily concealed and easily moved. And most of these weapons were illegally brought into the country in the first place.
Correct.
So banning the legal importation of a lot of these weapons is really not going to solve the problem. Then let's look at the long gun issue. A long gun is a notoriously bad choice if you're going on a crime spree. Okay, a long gun, most people who don't know guns, they know what a 40-40 Winchester is. That shoots, it's a long barrel, hence the name, a long gun, and it shoots shot. So if that moose or whatever is at, 200 meters, but you don't have to be that accurate. You're going to shoot enough shot that you're going to get whatever it is you're shooting at. But you don't go on a rampage with these weapons. And the automatic weapons that people do use for rampages, those should be banned. Okay, I understand that there's a faction of gun owners who like to own an AR-15 or a Kalashnikov with a big magazine that can hold 80 rounds, whatever it is, because they like to go to a firing range. My answer to those people is, please find a different weapon to practice your sport. These are dangerous weapons to have in the country. Now, politically, I think everybody's a loser in this deal. The Liberals are losers because they are going to completely bury any chance that they have of piercing rural ridings from an electoral point of view. It buries the Conservatives as well, because the Liberals are paying very close attention to everything that every Conservative has said during this gun debate, and it will be used against us sometime in 2025, whenever the next election is.
Because what else is new? But
because
anyway.
guns is something you can bring up at any time to use as a wedge issue. There's no best before date. It is a useful topic in any election campaign when you're talking about public safety, blah, 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 blah. So they will use it against us. So we're going to be, once again, dead in the urban ridings. The Liberals have read the charts and said, we can win with 30% of the vote in a 5-party house. So let's do what we want to do and forget about rural Canada, because we're going to win there anyway. So we're all a bunch of losers. The guns are going to keep coming in because the guns that commit the crimes are brought in illegally to the 90+ percentile in any case. And as Roy said, this is an exercise in PR and self-fulfillment for the Liberals.
Yeah, although, like I said, but interestingly enough, for all the criticism that Price had taken, and there was a lot of stuff, and then there was, there were accusations that, there was a statement that thought, well, he didn't know anything about the massacre. Although the Canadiens had put a statement, he put out a statement that just said,
"Oh, but hold on, that was the biggest failure. The Canadiens tried to defend him before they even spoke to him."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Don't you pick up the phone? You talk to the guy who was your face of the franchise and go, "Did you know about Polytechnique or not?"
Yeah.
And he would have gone, "Oh, yeah, I knew." Then you call National and you get the crisis managers in and you let them craft a message.
Yeah, I agree.
And as opposed to what they did, they ruined it for themselves. They ruined it for Price.
Well, they looked completely incompetent. I mean, it looked like they had not spoken to Carey Price, which one wonders.
Yeah,
like that's insane.
Yeah, the problem is,
it was craft a statement without actually speaking to the man who actually made the original statement.
Yeah, and then it turned out he did state he had to state, it was the next day actually, so December 5th, so 2 days before the anniversary. He said, just to clear it up, I do know about the massacre. I just didn't realize what day the anniversary was coming, so it was time. But he did say, and I have to say, I do defend this, and said, listen, it was the Liberals that brought all these amendments. It by consensus,
exactly for that reason. They brought it up for the fact that they wanted to use the Cal Polytechnic in order to. I mean, that's what they've been using for the last 30 years.
And for all the attempts to vilify Price, we did see all of a sudden, we did hear a lot of rumblings that NDP backbenchers, Liberal backbenchers in the rural ridings are like getting to the lead and say, whoa, we got to wait, what's going on here? So we did now we've seen a very conscientious effort led by Trudeau and Marco Mendicino, all of a sudden saying, oh, we're going to relook the way it's written. We're going to go through the list of the guns one by one. We're going to make sure the hunting rifles are not there. Hunting rifles are going to be allowed. And by the way, they also said handguns are still going to be allowed. Don't worry. So
one of the Liberals actually said that she can bring down a moose with a 22.
Well, that's okay.
If you get it right between the eyes.
Exactly.
Literally.
Otherwise, you're going to A, miss, or B, it's going to get stuck in its skull and have a bit of a headache.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, for how much
I heard this woman say she could shoot a moose. The average moose weighs about 1,200 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way.
Yeah, I can't think of her name. She's an MP from in Newfoundland, in one of the outskirts in Newfoundland there, and they made a big deal.
Well,
she knows her guns, and I'm like,
she's probably never seen a moose, seen a gun.
I don't know.
Before.
For someone who's supposed,
Can either of you tell me how many members of Parliament are either gun owners, perhaps gun users? Maybe they shoot for sport, they don't own a weapon. It's possible that they've actually shot a weapon at a firing range under controlled circumstances. or
I-
have any exposure whatsoever to weaponry of this nature.
I think
I'm
most
feeling-
of our rural MPs are probably gun owners, if not, I mean,
it'd be
if
good
you're
to
living in
know. Who talked to them? Did they consult each other? They say that outside the
No.
House of Commons they're friends, so maybe they should talk to each other.
Well,
But the Trudeau Liberal doesn't care about this legislation. If they cared about gun crime, they would not have removed the mandatory minimums. They would not have encouraged the people to reduce bail conditions. We are now punishing gun. If you commit a gun crime, you should be punished severely for just having the gun. But we're not doing that.
well,
They don't care. They want to use this as a wedge issue against the Tories. I mean, that's their only point.
well, they've
That's
been
most of their point. They don't actually do legislation that actually helps the people of Canada anymore.
Yeah, but I have to say, like on the converse end, I truly wish, like I said, I don't consider myself the most experienced. I a little bit about guns. My late grandfather was a hunter himself. He loved it. My father didn't take it up on take it up on it. He thought it was kind of bloody and gruesome and wasn't for him. So, but I know for the longest time I did have, when I was young in my house, so there were two hunting rifles in my house for one bit. But that's a whole other story. Look, what am I supposed to say here? I do believe, from what I know of gun legislation, the Liberals constantly, and we see this not only in Canada. I mean, I see this coming from Biden. I mean, we always see this discussion about assault style, we call it assault style rifles. And then to
Yes.
me, all rifles and guns can assault. Trying to pick off, we said we got to ban assault style rifles. And I'm like, well, what do you call? We do have a kind of brutal classification system for guns. And I wish a bunch of people could get together and stop fighting with each other and just like go through the list and maybe change our classification system so we can get it right. Because yes, I know there are rifles that can be converted to semi-automatics and all this kind of stuff, but it's such a politicized issue. And again, right, the Liberals love using it on the Conservatives. They've been doing it for 30 years. Even
you know what you can control? The next greatest danger is the ghost guns, where
yes,
you can 3D print
yes,
a gun on using plans that you downloaded from the internet.
Yes,
and there is absolutely no way to control this thing.
No, very dangerous. Yeah. So as I said, I wish some cooler heads, multi-partisan, that could just sit down and speak to people who actually know guns, and you could sit down and come up with a consensus list and just get our the gut instinct. And they always use the Conservatives, anytime the Conservatives have anything to say, it's the instant reaction is, we're going, American style gun laws are coming to Canada. We're not even close to what American laws are. We're pretty.
So, I think we need a little bit of a history lesson.
We do.
The right to bear arms comes from the Glorious Revolution, the Bill of Rights from the Glorious Revolution, where basically it says that Protestants, not Jews or Catholics, could bear arms, mostly to shoot Jews and Catholics.
Well,
so that's where their Second Amendment basically comes from. We actually have that same tradition, but we've gone in a different direction, as have the United Kingdom and Australia. But you know what? We're a rural country. We have a lot of land, and we have a lot of people who hunt for subsistence in the north.
Yeah.
We can't just ban all the guns. I mean,
let's not forget that the Americans also relied significantly on a militia.
Yes.
So that was, one of the primary motivators beyond economic value to being able to shoot a firearm. So,
well, their constitution was the product of a revolution, basically. So, the concept of the militia and not trusting, government police officers and stuff like that it's very entrenched in the mindset there. But we're completely different, and we have very tight requirements to become a registered gun owner.
My brother used to have a gun, and he had to fulfill all kinds of things. He had an RCMP background check. He had all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So, it's nothing like the United States.
Yeah.
The way they're tightening it is not actually helpful. It's not actually doing anything. And why in year 7 have they decided to do this? I mean, they've been there for 6 years. Explain why all of these legislation, it was also dangerous until today, and all of a sudden they need to ban guns. I mean,
why was the RCMP commissioner, Miss Lukey, basically told to intrude into an investigation into the largest gun massacre in Canadian history in Portapique? Back there, because Trudeau was going to use this as an opportunity to ban more guns indiscriminately. And in fact, they did. I remember there was an order in council that listed like 1,500 weapons, and it included like bazookas and stuff like that. And you go, who owns a bazooka?
Well, Trudeau himself has said he has
rocket launchers. I mean, what?
Trudeau himself has said he's gone hunting and he's had a gun.
He's a licensed gun owner.
Yeah,
he is. As I distinctly recall, in fact, he had, I think, 2 guns once upon a time stolen from the family cottage way back when. So yeah, he is one, but
oh, that was also kind of dumb. They stole the family guns, but they didn't take Pierre's 300 SL that was in the garage.
No.
They took the wrong thing,
which is foolish. Yeah, exactly. I would take that damn. It was me. I'd take that damn.
Well, the 300 SL is worth close to $1 million.
Oh no, it's worth much more than.
Oh, it's more. It's more now.
Is it worth more now?
Oh yeah.
No, that SL, because of its pedigree, is a $2 million car.
Yeah, I'd say easily. Okay,
and he restored it. They restored it a few years back, by the way.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, I think we took guns as far as we can go, because sometimes, as long as we have elections,
I'm just so sick of the virtue signaling and not actually doing legislation that's actually useful.
Well, I mean, it's a recurring theme.
Why should it be any different on this issue versus any other issue?
Yeah. So another issue came up. The Liberals. So we had a couple of days ago. So we had a new ruling from the ethics commissioner, and guess what? We've got another Liberal cabinet minister found in contravention the Conflict of Interest Act. This is Mary Ng, who's Minister of International Trade, and 2 other ministers. I don't want to read the whole title. I know this is kind of shocking, but she's actually, before she became a minister, before she became an MP, she actually worked in the PMO. She was actually their director of appointments. She's a very close friend of Katie Telford, and she's very close friends with a woman named Amanda Varro, who's a frequent commentator on
Power and Politics. Yes,
Power and Politics,
and
on CBC.
Has been implicated in several other of these contracts with Monsef and several other,
which I was about to get to. And in any case, so the conflict of interest. The ethics commissioner ruled that, guess what, Miss Ng and her departments over a period of about 2 years entered into 6 different contracts with Amanda Alvaro's company called Pomp and Circumstance.
I love the name.
I love the name, by the way.
Yeah,
I love the name. God bless you, Amanda, for that one. If it's a registered trademark, even better. So there were 6 different contracts ranging in value. I mean, because I'm one of these nerds who actually reads the report, because it's kind of funny when I watch people arguing these things out, and whether it's good or bad or whatever, and how nobody actually reads the report. So we did have apparently 6 contracts entered into. They were valued anywhere from about $5,900 all the way to, Robert, you're going to love this one, $24,970, $980.
Amazing.
As a procurement,
and we all
as
know
a government
why
procurement expert, I think you could have something to say about how that magical number came to be.
Yes, I know that number well.
So we found it there, contract. and you'd think, normally, this is what, about the 5th between Trudeau and his ministers. I think this is about the 5th different minister.
Dominique LeBlanc.
Yeah, you could run
Bill Morneau.
You could run through the list. Yeah, you could run through the list here. They get through, and it's the press that, again, media is like, oh well, here it is, and move on. But Robert, please step in here on this.
I'm going to ask a different question.
Please do.
what were the deliverables? Did the minister get value for the money? In other words, this wasn't just like some soft lob, you're my friend, I'm going to throw you some cash. Amanda Alvaro does not need the $5,900 to $24,998 contract. Okay. So it's in our nature. We in private business, who do you want to do business with? You want to do business with people you know and you trust.
That's absolutely true.
So I think that because they know each other, because the contract amounts were relatively low, they were of a consulting nature, they figured, okay, we're just going to do it. I need somebody who I can trust, who I know, who knows me, who's going to turn this around quickly and get it done. And so I think these conflict of interest rules were not really designed to prevent you from doing business with people you know, but to prevent these superfluous squandering of government funds with no deliverable whatsoever. And so we're losing the most important part of this debate by not asking what was delivered. Was it useful? Was this purely a fluff piece, or did the minister get something actionable out of it? And then if we find out that this was a sop to your friend and really nothing was done, then that minister should resign. As opposed to just a slap on the wrist. But in the big kerfuffle of once again, this is a within the Vanier Parkway issue. I think we've missed an opportunity here.
Look, the reason that's a 24,000 something, because there's a $25,000 limit for tenders.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the reason why they do that. And they do this over and over and over again. And I'm sorry, this looks corrupt.
We never did it. We, the Conservatives, when we were in power, we never handed out small contracts to people we knew. Come on. Of course we did it. All right.
And Blacklock's reporter would track it too. So I have to say, no, I think I
am not a big fan of Amanda Alvaro. She is not one of my favorite people, and this happens with her on a regular basis.
Well, she was look, in effect, she was the official spokesperson for the Liberal Party during the We Charity scandal, because she
did a good job.
And she was involved.
She did a hell of a job.
Well, she's a crook. I'm sorry.
She was also, and I should point out, because the media doesn't point it out, when Mary Ang first ran for office in the by-election in that riding in Markham, her good friend Miss Alvaro, who they're friends, they first met and they both worked in the Ontario Ministry of Education back in 2003. This is also in the report. I'll leak the anyway. Miss Alvaro was also her campaign manager that first time they were elected. So this kind of
why doesn't the media question Alvaro and ask her what she gave for this $25,000? Because the media has not talked to her at all, in spite of the fact that she's on CBC regularly. No one asked her what did you give for this money that you're getting from the government?
Can she be found right now?
I'm sure she's in hiding, or
listen, to her credit, listen, she's known, and we know from a number of these contracts, she does like media training and media preparation. She's crisis management, she's that kind of stuff, and general public relations. But I just find, I mean, personally, I find it kind of funny, and like I said, she's obviously pretty good at what she does, and she's got all kinds of clientele, and I'm sure it's just not only from the Liberal Party. Listen, she's this media specialist and all this. In the meantime, her friend just gets kind of nailed there, and she's nowhere to be found. You'd think she'd come out and say, yeah, so I'm like, what's the problem? But she's disappeared.
Yeah.
It's funny. That's what kind of irks me a little bit. I know.
You know what? We're focusing on these tiny amounts of money, but back in the Chrétien era, where they blew $4 billion in the human resources scandal, where literally $4 billion went out the door and we had nothing to show for it.
Back in the day when a financial scandal could take down a government, the good old days.
So, $2003.
Yeah.
And we let that go.
Yeah.
So they've just come out and said $27 billion was wasted during some of the government programs. And I'm sure that's just the
No,
tip
no,
of
no,
the
no, no.
iceberg.
That's not what they said. That's not what they said. They said $27 billion deserves to be investigated and possibly clawed back from the companies and individuals who
And the
got
government's not going to do it.
Well, the argument from CRA is that it's going to cost us more to try to get a lot of it back than the money itself. Which is, there were times when we were upset when the entire government deficit was $27 billion. Do you remember the days? Oh my God! Now it's like, oh, we only wasted possibly $27 billion out of $350 billion of COVID relief.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Yeah,
Good job, boys.
Well, and the CERB's the same. Look, it's $4.7 billion that they're pretty sure shouldn't have gone out, and they've recovered maybe 5% of it, and
and then there's the money. The money went to business, which apparently they're never going to get back several billion.
Oh no, they won't get that. But the issue to me is, are we looking into it in a way where we can learn something for next time? And we have not had a proper inquiry into how we spent. What were the objectives? Were the objectives met? What did we do well? What did we do poorly? Let's put this on the table and learn.
So, Robert, once again, the government is not serious. The Auditor General asked for more money to do an investigation of all of this stuff. Yeah. He was denied an increase in his budget to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you would think that you would let the Auditor General look at this stuff and see if we got value for our money.
But it shouldn't be the Auditor General. It should be a parliamentary inquiry on the level that we put together to look at the use of the Emergencies Act.
100%.
Yeah.
It has to be a public.
There's no advantage for the government to do that, and they're not going to.
But there is, in that you get it out of the way now. You're a transparent government. You've looked at what you've done. Hold on, I'm pitching for them right now, which is
no. Let Robert finish. Yeah.
You get it out of the way. You said, hey, I put everything on the table, lumps and all. We went through this in 2023, let's say. It's 2025 now. We have learned. We are prepared. We did what you asked us to do. And they will not pay for it politically in 2025 if they do it now. Well, and by the way, it can be inquiry light. It doesn't have to be like to the extent that they looked at the Emergencies Act. But there should be ministers at the table explaining themselves, saying, hey, did you discuss risk analysis? Did you consider that there might be fraud? Under what conditions could there be fraud? How much fraud was acceptable to you? This is what we deserve to know. And if there was no discussion of risk analysis, then they have failed in their governance.
I'd love to see Poilievre bring that up as a matter, like, and because because look, the Public Emergencies Act inquiry, which they had to do by law, even if they say it shouldn't have been implemented, if Judge Rula says shouldn't have been implemented, the Liberals are just going to come out and say, well, look, we learned from this, but you know what? At the time, we had to act we had to act quickly on behalf of Canadians. So this is what we did. And you know what? They're going to say it, and the whole thing's going to blow.
Exactly, and they'll say the same thing.
And they could do the same
thing.
This is the least transparent government in our history. I have no doubt that they will not do this. We should have a complete COVID inquiry. We need to know what the things that we did they actually help, and what the harms were done. But we're not going to do that. I mean,
look, this is not over. We're about to have, we have this triple witching of RSV and flu and COVID. Potentially.
Can I tell you the medical reason why this is happening? So we have spent the last 3 years taking our children away from. Our immune system works by being exposed to viruses. What we did was we put people at home and stopped them from being exposed to viruses, and now they have an immunity deficit, and we are now paying the price for that. Fortunately, the kids most of them will recover quite quite well. But I mean, this is a direct result of some of the kooky policies that we have instituted in the last 3 years.
Sure. You know,
And
it's funny you said that because
you're seeing that in China right now because they've started relaxing their crazy COVID laws, and there are huge outbreaks of everything now because the immune system doesn't work if it actually doesn't see the viruses that it's meant to fight.
Yeah, but China's going to have hundreds of millions of cases.
Oh, for sure.
It's unavoidable.
It's
for precisely the reasons that Roy has listed for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, just on a smaller scale. I mean, obviously, China's a big country, but you've seen like Australia and New Zealand, who really sheltered it. Now that's just exploded there because
they've just proven what I just said. That the immune system. I mean, there are actually one of the reasons that things are like a lot of people are more allergic to things than they were before is that we're super clean. It was probably a good idea for the kids to eat dirt, No,
that you know what? My wife's, God bless her, my wife's OBGYN at the time. It was funny because she told her advice about how to raise them and stuff like that. She said, make sure they get their vaccinations on schedule. And they said, work on their immune system. I remember my wife saying, especially after the first one, goes, how do you do that? She goes, let them eat dirt. Let them go to the sandbox. Let them eat. Let them spread. Let them catch all kinds of colds and all kinds of crap from everybody else. It'll be great.
My kids went to public daycares, and yes, they got sick at the time, but they rarely get sick today.
Nope,
because their immune systems have been trained.
Yeah. Nope, my kids rarely get sick at all. I almost never have to put in any. They almost never take a medicine for almost anything. It's just but that's because we let them go. They got something. Great, okay. You moved on. Anyways, just drifting off the topic a little bit, but Robert, you're absolutely right. I wish there was a full-blown public inquiry because we just should know. What the Liberals do with it is fine. You know what the next government does? If the next time we have a pandemic, we've got something to study by so that we know the next time we do these proper risk analysis.
We don't learn from our last experience. Remember, I lived through SARS-1 when in
I know.
And we had an inquiry over that, we learned nothing. We learned absolutely nothing. They 2 years before all of this, they sold all of our PPE to the Chinese at a cut rate. So we had nothing left here. What the plan that Dr. Tam instituted at that time, she completely ignored and used the Chinese model. So, I mean, you're telling me that they learned from inquiries. They learned nothing.
Well, anyways, you know what? Okay. Anyways, we're going to move on. I think we're going to do one more topic for today. And of course, the one other thing we did, I'd love to do some of the other bills, but some of them are going to crash. Some of them are going to change. I'd love to do like C11, C18, C13. I have to do a show about C13, but we'll see. I do want to touch on one thing. We did have all in the middle of all this. We did also have our first by-election since federal by-election since Pierre Poilievre became the leader of the Conservatives. It was in the riding of Mississauga-Lakeshore. Trudeau was very good about this one. Again, like he always does with by-elections, he waits as late as possible to call it. He calls it an election writ period as possible for the by-election. For good measure, he threw this one in mid-December, which you almost never do. It's almost a dead assurance you're going to get nobody to turn out. Not that they turn out much for by-elections anyway. So it was a Liberal seat. It's still a Liberal seat. Charles Sousa, who's a former Ontario finance minister, who had that riding provincially for a length of time. He's a former RBC executive for about 20 years before that. Obviously, a well-experienced guy on a very low turnout, about 27% turnout. He won. He got just over 50% of what did show out. It was funny because it was a giant ballot with about 40 independent candidates, and there's a whole story behind that one. The Conservatives in their first test put a relatively unknown candidate. Didn't look like they put a lot of effort in it. Actually, but secret in the end, they kept saying, it's been broadcasted. It's a big Conservative disaster, but he got 30.
God.
But he got 37% of the vote. So let's just analyze this because I know Tom Mulcair over here locally. He's turned this into a whole something to be excited about.
Tom Mulcair has become I mean,
I'll lead in the next question. So let's
hang
on, back. Let's go. You know what? I've had Roy. I've had Roy on the last two subjects. Robert, Robert, do you have any hot take to offer on this by-election result?
I want to tip my hat to Tasha Karidin for having written a very, very good analysis on what happened in that riding.
I agree.
The NDP vote collapsed. You had horrendously low turnout, as you just pointed out. The Tories, really, neither from the leader nor the candidate himself. I mean, we didn't risk a good candidate in that riding.
No.
We put a warm body there. Hopefully one that wasn't going to embarrass us.
Good idea, Robert. What do you think?
I think had we made an effort, had we picked a name and put into that riding, we certainly could have done better. We could have closed the gap, certainly. Plus, if you have such low turnout, it means your voters, your conservative voters, are not showing up because they've looked at your lackluster performance in the campaign and said, that guy's not going to win anyway. Why am I bothering to go vote? Had we put a known conservative and made a real effort and had Poilievre shown up, say, twice, I think the conservative voters would have come out to vote. Would we have won? I have no idea. I'm no expert in that riding, but I'm fairly confident to say it would have been much closer, and our critics would have said, hey, for a riding where the Liberal candidate is well-known, represented provincially, and is probably being tagged as the next federal finance minister, would be first former conservative, former provincial cabinet minister, finance minister who goes federal and gets the job. We did okay. But instead, we did not invest, and we got the result we deserved.
Yeah, but you think maybe that was the intention? Is there a big picture kind of thing coming out of this? Where
I think we were just distracted with so many other things that the people in the back room decided we're going to lose this one anyway. Let's just try not to make it horrendously embarrassing, and we're not going to invest the leader's reputation in this riding. Yeah, but politics is about taking risks. If you don't venture out, if you don't make an effort, how do you know who you can turn around?
Yeah. Well, and also remember, it's a 905 riding. We've heard forever we've got to win in the 905 to win.
We used to win ridings in the 905.
We did in 2011, certainly.
So it's not that.
My only concern on this part is I'm thinking there might, obviously, since Pierre become leader, they've gutted everything inside of the party. They're supposedly working on there's going to be a new GOTV voter ID registration system. They're getting rid of the old Sims, which looked like it ran on Windows 98. Internally, I've seen it.
It's one of those things. 1995 computer, I think.
Yeah, whatever. So I mean, they could say, "Oh, well, listen, this came on quick. We didn't have too much of a chance of doing it. Why blow? Why show all our cards when we're trying to build it?" I'm just hypothetical here, so I don't know. Doc, step in here.
So it's been a Liberal riding since 1994.
No. It voted Tory once.
Once in 2011. Stella Ambler won it in 2011.
Oh yeah, Stella
only
Ambler.
once since 1993. It's been conservative.
I know. Surprised
it was funny because Mulcair was sitting on the radio on TV saying, "Oh, it's been a bellwether riding indicating which party's going to win." I'm going,
well,
the
that's
Liberals
not true.
The Liberals held it 4 of the last 29 years. I mean, come on.
It's not Toronto Center.
Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't think much attention was paid by anyone to that seat.
No.
And I think that he got 37%. That's not bad. With the problem for us, though, that I see is the NDP collapse. In order for us to win seats, we do not need we need an NDP to actually have healthy numbers of votes.
Yes.
And that is a problem. Sometimes I think I should give money to the NDP, but because they're literally destroying their brand and their party.
I don't disagree with that, by the way.
The NDP fundraising is way down.
Yeah.
I think they've taken a second mortgage on their building. I'm not sure if they're a viable force in the next election, and that's a problem because those votes won't go to us. I mean, some of them might, because I do like the strategy of I think we should be the party of the poor and the working class. Because the Liberals and the NDP have actually abandoned the poor and the working class.
Yep.
This idea that Tories hate the poor is insane. I mean, I shudder at those kind of words, because you know what? The poor are my brothers, and I want them to do well in life. And I think most Tories, if you ask them what they want, they would want the poor and the working class to do better. That's part of our DNA.
Well, we have to be the party that promotes economic opportunity and fairness.
Exactly.
That is how we bring people to our side. And new Canadians and immigrants, they understand that argument because that's what brought them to this country.
Correct.
Yep.
Liberals say that they're going to improve the lives of people. It's with a check.
Yeah.
I'm not going to subsidize you out of poverty. I'm going to create the economic conditions to allow you to rise up out of poverty. And I will make sure that the state is there to support you with its infrastructure and its capability and its services, but not with a monthly check, because then we're just impoverishing everybody, which we've done an excellent job of doing. But
I don't mind Poilievre when he talks about he says paychecks, not debt, which paychecks means, look, I want you to earn paychecks, which is that's a perfect.
I'm an immigrant myself. I'm a first generation immigrant. My family are immigrants. One of my uncles came to this country, and for 2 years he spent bagging groceries at Steinberg's. Did we look down on him? No, he supported his family.
Right.
And I think most immigrants that come here are willing to work. This idea that taking money from people who have and giving it to people who don't, I completely agree with Robert. The check is not the answer. The check, there's a dignity to work. There's a dignity to work. There's something, it's actually good for your mental spirits to actually be able to make a living and support your family. And I think that's the party we should be. We should be the party that wants people to have dignity.
Yeah, but we have to be brave enough, because we've now had a cycle of elections under the Liberals where if times are tough for you,
they give you money
to vote for the party who is going to cut you the biggest check.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not the NDP because they're never going to form power. So
did you see when Jagmeet Singh got up and said when he's prime minister, and the whole house laughed for 20 seconds?
Yeah, I did see that.
That's got to be so demeaning,
Yeah, it's true. I just wanted to point out, because I'm kind of a numbers guy. I was looking at this. So the NDP, they were they were around 5% in this election. It is a riding. They're typically around 8%, 9%. My only reserve point is, yes, it looked bad. The NDP, it looked very, very bad for Bernier and the PPC. We didn't talk about that. They were down to 1%. So
no one talks about them.
Yeah, they're law. They're a party without a platform really anymore. I think so that part of Poilievre has been successful because the PPC looks vaporized to me.
It's very interesting. I was in Miami for a conference for the day, and Max was
Bernier.
there.
Yeah.
And Max kept coming up and saying, Roy, are you still mad at me? Are you still mad at me? He said, yes, Max, I'm furious with you. And he kept saying, Max is a very charming man. And after a while, I finally said, okay, I'm not mad at you now, but I'm never going to vote for you. And you need to come back to the party. And he said, no, that's not going to happen. I'm the true conservative, and I'm going to keep you guys honest. And I just rolled my eyes. So I think, honestly, this PPC is now just a way for Max to earn a living.
And he can earn a living? How's he making a living at it?
Well, they're apparently getting enough donations to give him a salary.
He's getting about $125,000. I think it's $125,000 a year or something right now from the
Does he have a
party.
pension from Parliament?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think he served long enough that he'll be eligible.
But he's not old enough, is he?
Oh,
No, I don't think he can get at 55. I think he has to wait till 65. But he did. I think he accrued enough service to get the pension, the government pension. So, but I mean, the sad part here is, I mean, he could have, even if he left the party, he could have like gone into like the private sector and take some directorships and stuff like that, and do the lecture circuit or something, and really be a thorn in Scheer's side. But he's thrown himself now. Anyway, I don't even get to burn yet. I just want to get back to the NDP. My one reservation there is, I think this was there was one unusual thing with this by-election, and that is that there were 40 independent candidates, and I understand at least 31 of them were all using the same official agent. And this was like an organized, there was an organized group. I believe it's Fair Vote, but don't hold me to it. But basically, it was on the principle that they object to the first past the post system, and this was the way they were going to oppose it. So they put all this slate, including a lot of candidates who used to run for the Rhinoceros Party. And they put them all together, and they were going to just kind of screw up the whole election and that. So I don't think in a full national election you would see this kind of slate. They collectively did earn a few hundred. I suspect quite a few of those voters might have been NDP voters, because of course, getting rid of first past the post was a big thing with the NDP. Trudeau was supposedly going to do that in 2015, like he was all do it, but he abandoned it. So there's obviously these kind of people are probably miffed at the NDP. So there's probably a few hundred there, which might have been the difference between 5% and, say, I don't know, 6.5. So there's a little of that. And of course, some may have just gone over the Liberals, figuring, well, if he's got a coalition with the Liberals, he might as well vote for the real deal, kind of thing.
Well,
I don't know, but you're right. I mean, obviously, you should be concerned with the NDP number until proven otherwise.
I always remember that cartoon with David Lewis before and after the 74,
72 to 74,
72 to 74 election. Yeah. And he was smiling before because he was in a coalition with Mr. Trudeau, and then afterwards he lost almost all of his seats.
Yeah,
and I suspect that's going to happen to Jagmeet.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
On that note, I think we're going to wrap it up, because we're going to probably get one more show before the end of the year where we're going to do like our kind of year in review, a kind of loosey goosey kind of thing, just about general year in general with Canadian politics. So let's cut we'll cut any other thoughts here. I think we covered enough tonight. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Dr. Roy, for joining us. Thank you to our listeners and our viewers for tuning in. And we'll be back really soon. And take care, be well. And like I said, we'll be back. Thank you.